Did you guys hear about the fact that YouTube is a proven juggernaut that rivals Netflix in the streaming views? Let me give you some stats on this. So Google parent company Alphabet delivered another monster earnings report Tuesday. One of the brightest bits came from YouTube, which booked a whopping, ready, $7 billion in advertising revenue last quarter. Quarterly revenue is on par with Netflix, and it's growing at a faster rate. Alphabet said YouTube booked $7 billion in ad revenue last quarter. That's up 83% from a year ago. Compare that to Netflix's $7.3 billion in revenue booked in the same period. Netflix's revenue grew 19.4% from a year ago. By the way, Kai, is that not interesting to know that YouTube grew by 83% versus Netflix's 19%?
That's wild.
That's pretty wild to think. Well, YouTube television viewing has grown faster than ever before. The company said 120 million people watch YouTube on TV last month, up from 100 million per month last year. Up from 100 million a month from last year's 20%. YouTube's TikTok rival is also growing. Short-term video is the dominant trend on social media today, with TikTok's leading on charge. YouTube has its own short-form video service, YouTube Shorts, designed to compete with TikTok. Alphabet didn't disclose how many people are using YouTube Shorts, but said viewing metrics jumped from 6.5 billion views per day in March to 15 billion views a day in end of last quarter. So YouTube beating Netflix. Tom, are you surprised by this?
No, we kind of talked about a little bit of this. We were talking about Disney Plus like about a month and a half ago here on the podcast. So remember, COVID year spurred everything. And the Disney Plus launch happened at the, orgasmic perfect launch point for Disney Plus, for everybody was in the house and everybody wanted to watch TV, and Disney Plus was with Hulu was a great over-the-top service. Well, I think what's also happening is you got to remember, we're talking about the YouTube viewership that's web, online, ad supported over the last course of the last year. So it doesn't surprise me. And I'm really seeing, you had ABC, NBC, CBS, and that was the original big three before the consolidations and CW went away and Fox. Remember all that? Mm-hmm. Well, I think what you have right now, you've got the Disney monolith. You have YouTube, because remember, as YouTube television as well as YouTube online, et cetera. And then you've got TikTok. And I think what's interesting about TikTok, what we kind of jumped over, and I don't know if you guys covered this or not, TikTok is only the second company ever to have 3 billion downloads, right? Facebook was number one. TikTok was number two, my understanding. And so I think the plates are shifting, and what we're seeing is a big three emerge in both streaming and entertainment. Disney Plus and Hulu, and then YouTube with YouTube TV, and then you've got Snap's not really doing its thing. You have Facebook, Instagram, waiting in the lobby to go into Congress, sir. And then TikTok. That's what I think is going on. We're seeing big three emerge like we've seen in other industries.
Mm-hmm. I think, look, there's two different sides of this. There's two different things at play. All right, there is the idea of a model, right? You have the two different models. You have the subscription versus the freemium model. But then you also have restriction of speech and curation versus choice, right? Like if you go on Netflix, especially over the last 2-3 years, it's been remarkably look, it's basically social engineering, right? I mean, the amount of we talk about all the time, and I know I'm sounding like Johnny Right Wing again, but it's just, this is the truth of it. Like everything has a left wing progressive messaging, so it turns people off. If I go to a Netflix original, I just immediately think, okay, it's going to be Orange is the New Black, it's going to be this, it's going to be that, it's going to have the same messaging. I'm not interested in it.
What are they selling me? What concept are they selling me?
It's kind of the same thing with Disney Plus. On YouTube, I have the choice then. Like I can watch what they suggest, but I have the choice to search for anything that I want. I'm on YouTube all the time, and I find myself on TikTok all the time now as well. That algorithm gets to know you pretty well. So you're finding something, in our industry. It's really interesting because we're in the content creation industry. How do you create an environment where people are willing to pay for content when they've grown their entire life being entertained for free? And also, how do you present them with content when they themselves have chosen the content that they want their whole life? This is how iTunes changed the game, and this is how YouTube is defeating Netflix.
Long-term, who wins, Netflix or YouTube?
I think free choice wins, man. The ability to choose exactly what you want to watch, when you want to watch, and to be able to watch it for free it's an unbeatable. I don't
You think long-term Netflix or YouTube wins? Folks, if you're watching this, long-term who wins? Netflix or YouTube?
I think you're
Well, we're
asking,
talking about two different things. We're talking about long-form creation and
Yeah.
episodical that Netflix does, which takes longer to build millions and millions and millions of dollars per new show concept versus
independently ran channels where people are creating their own
Correct.
content. Yeah. So who wins long-term?
YouTube. I think.
YouTube on that platform wins long-term, and I think they are going to find out pretty quick that they need to allow the conservative voice a little bit more latitude, and I think they're going to learn that thanks to the Facebook hearings that are coming up.
You think so? Because right now they're probably sitting there saying our strategy is working. We're up 83%. You don't know what you're talking about.
19%.
Tom. No. Netflix is up 19%.
Yeah.
YouTube is up 83%.
Yeah.
You think YouTube is saying, Tom, our strategy is working well. Everybody was talking about Netflix a year ago. We're whooping their ass. They're at 19. We're doing 4x what they're doing and more. So yes, we're going to stick to our.
No, the
guns and do what
strategy
they're
is
doing.
working well,
Yeah.
and you're absolutely correct.
Yeah.
But let's rewind a bit, make sure everybody hears what I just said. Facebook is heading into hearings, right? They're coming.
Yeah.
You got all the new people that are chairing FTC, and you hear the statements they're making even yesterday.
Yeah.
Those people are not happy with Facebook and the targeting, and Facebook is trying to pander to the Americans by writing a foil board with an American flag while John Denver music plays, right? So I think right now, are YouTube's sales executives thinking? No.
Yeah.
They're exactly what you're saying, Pat. You're right. But are they strategically thinking, we better keep our eye on this government thing? Because if Facebook gets moved on this, then they're going to move us too.
We've actually seen this play out, guys.
But long term, it's an open field. Even if
Netflix-
they censor it later, it's an open field.
Netflix is a CD. You might have one show that you really want on Netflix. You want to watch House and Cards, so you got Netflix.
Yeah.
Same way when I wanted to listen to Rough Riders Anthem, I had to buy It's Dark and Hell's Hot. I had to buy DMX's whole CD. Right? That's Netflix. You got to buy the platform to get that one show. Where I see YouTube as iTunes. I can just pick the one thing that I like, and then I'll go to something else. So we saw this play out. iTunes destroyed the CD industry. There's no CDs anymore. You don't need to buy a whole
I think
album
that's
anymore.
a great metaphor.
That's where we're at. We saw
it's a
it
great
play
metaphor.
out. You know?
So long term.
Although every now and then, Netflix does something good like Drive to Survive.
So
It's awesome. And
question though
Cars
for
and
you.
Comedians Cars.
Question though
And
for you.
it's unscripted.
Tom, who is less likely to have a competitor take market share away from them? Okay, Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter? Who is least likely to have a direct competitor and take market share away from? I'm talking a good amount of market share.
YouTube.
Least likely.
I think so.
Least likely.
Because the amount of server space you would have to compete is like remarkable. You'd have to like
kind of like competing against a bottling company like Pepsi or Coke.
Yeah.
Okay. So who's second least likely? Do you agree with him, by the way, YouTube being number one?
Yes.
Okay. Who's your second least likely? Facebook or Twitter?
Facebook.
Facebook is second. So Twitter's easier to go up against than Facebook or YouTube.
Put it this way, Facebook tried to compete with YouTube twice. They had Facebook Watch and they had IGTV. They tried to roll out not one but two different IPs just to try to match YouTube, and they failed.
You agree with him? You agree with him?
Yes,
on the list?
I do. And what he in the middle of an argument, you can add to that is they were also the first one with the big bank going out to pay creators.
Mm-hmm. Well, Facebook tried to
I'm talking about
a couple
Facebook
years ago,
had the big bank.
They
and
were
like, hey,
3xing the CPMs. They were literally
we're going to spend
us.
$500 million, $5 million at a time on 100 different shows. Remember that?
Yep.
And they went over to WME, and WME happily took their money.
So if you enjoyed this little short segment from the podcast that we did, here's another short segment to watch. Or if you want to see the entire podcast, click over here. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.